Hey there everybody, it's Wayne D. Welcome to the website, WayneD.com. We're looking at Jamie Kilmer. He's the head professional at Wheatley Hills Golf Club in Long Island, on Long Island, however you say that. Jamie's started with me last year, and by the end of the year he started playing pretty good, so our work has reaped a few benefits. So in this lesson we wanted to get a midwinter look-see, so you can keep working on it, get ready for the spring up in New York, which a lot of times isn't until May, but so pretty much things that I see in Jamie's swing, we'll see as common, and it has a lot to do with right arm and shoulder pullback. So we'll take a look, draw a couple lines, and see what the swing is doing. If we look at it from face on here, see a real nice looking backswing to me. Maintains his height, loads to the right a little bit, hips are right there in the box. And then we see an issue happening in transition where it appears that the backswing turn is pulling or leaning Jamie forward a little bit, and so a little out of sequence. So one of the things that I always look at is when we get between P3 and P4, when you look at this, if you start seeing more of that right forearm above the left, so here you can barely see it, you know that that right arm has some pullback in it. So here we can see almost the full right forearm. Now if you get in a mirror and swing back face on from P3 to 4, if you feel like you're pushing away and keeping the width while the wrist cock, you'll see that the right forearm won't do that, so it won't pull back like that. And a lot of times when I see that, especially in good players, it just initiates that downswing with that little bit of kick forward with the upper body. And you can see that the head movement continues. It's not stable starting down, so you get the lateral movement that you want, but it comes with lateral movement of the upper body, which isn't going to allow for that right arm to externally rotate and pitch in front. So we get a weak approach position. So almost all the time, what I see, if the head drifts over to where it's pretty much right dead over the ball, the hands are going to try to release the club because the sense is that we're getting ahead of it. So here's that same swing and slow. When we look at it from behind, we get a little better picture of what the right shoulder is doing. So a large part of the lesson here was, again, talking about how to think and feel about the right arm and shoulder as you reach the top, and how do we keep it from giving it that little extra pullback. So you can see, takeaway right on the money. Can't complain about. There's really nothing to pick at too much here. Now, this is a position that, like, if you look at a Xander Schauffele or somebody like that, this is a position where the backswing would pretty much be over and the downswing would start. So that would be about there. But, you know, Most players are used to taking the club back X amount, uh, and the way they do that sometimes is a problem. So watch what happens here, and really focus on the right shoulder and the armpit. So you can see as that forearm appears here on the right, on the left, right there, as you can see that forearm pull back. Watch what's happening here. That's the right arm pulling back this way. And a lot of times that'll have the club cross just a little bit like this. So we've got and this is the thing that we talked about the most, and that Jamie kind of liked the explanation. When you talk about your shoulders, if you stand up at address and cross your arms across your chest, like in that little stand-up drill that everybody does, what happens is your shoulders are actually rounded forward. So that's called protracting the shoulder blades. When you hollow your chest out and feel that your shoulders are moving forward. So if that feeling is maintained in the backswing, then that's when you get the right arm more in front and the shoulder not pulling back. So the pullback is called retracting, and that's what you get when you see the shoulder pull away or pull back toward the target more at the end of the backswing. And when you start the downswing, because the motion is fluid and the body is not going to stop, so you can't really push the arm forward if it's pulling backwards. So what happens is it stays way up and it stays jammed back, and the right arm really, it can't adduct, which would be driving the upper arm down and forward into the front of the hip. So you can see that the upper arm is not really driving forward. It's staying way up. It gets behind the body up here. And the hands, because good players want room for that arm and they don't want to leave it way stuck back behind them, that forces the hands well out away from the body. So we go back to address and the hands are down here. And now they're going to approach from way up there. So watch the head pull back to accommodate. Once that club feels like it might get tipped over and come in from out to in, the head will pull back to drop the club, which Jamie does very well. So the left wrist is now arching up, and we've introduced a complication in this release, along with the fact that because the shoulder retraction is actually starting the downswing almost, and that head drifts forward, the hands widen out and release to square the face, and now we're going to get a little more flip through impact here. Now the hard part is really training this arm to do what it's supposed to do. But I think that as I've sort of studied, I've asked my trainer what the muscles are doing up here, that understanding the feeling of keeping the right shoulder forward and protracted as you reach the top, all the stress then and the stretch is put on the left shoulder. So you're really measuring your mobility from the left shoulder socket. It's like how much can you move your arm. So what I like players to do is just take a left hand only on the club, take a backswing and see how far you can get, and then put the right hand on the club. And normally what you'll get, especially with a more of a stocky upper body like Jamie, who's really strong, you'll get a swing that's somewhere in this neighborhood of length. And if you look at the tour swings these days, they're really just getting more efficient. The players are strong. They realize that if they're wider, both on the backswing and the downswing, that they can shallow out their impacts and still get, because they're sequencing correctly, they'll still get plenty of lag. Again, just got to look at Finau and Schauffele and some of these guys who don't really employ big swings but hit the ball plenty far, of course. So what we do, or what I like to have players do, is do some stop and goes. And this is where we do these as a drill. So here you're going to see Jamie stretch that thing out. Now, the momentum of a real swing is going to take this thing back a little bit further, but this is the sensation of not using the right shoulder to pull this thing back further. So you can just see the upper arm is here. Can't see much of that forearm. And then when he comes down, he can get the right elbow more in. Now, this is it's going to require the left wrist to understand how it's going to add flexion here to close the face so that it doesn't stay cupped all the time. But these things are worked out after getting this drill done a few times. Now, he did a nice job here. This is very important in a stop and go. You want to make sure that and this is good practice for him anyway, because we want to make sure that that head stays right there and that the motion of starting down is all from the ground. Now, one thing that, again, he has to do, he's have to be mindful of the face, but after hitting a few of these, you can see, look at the difference here. He's behind the ball nicely now. The hands are more forward. It's a kind of a counterintuitive sort of thing. The head stays more behind and the right arm can get more in front. So in order to get the upper right arm to be able to, it does three things from the top. I'm going to stretch this out. So again, you can see no pullback of that arm. Now we're going to try to see if we can get the feeling of starting from the ground. Now we got three things going on with the right arm. We want to adduct the upper arm, which means it's going to drive on an angle down and forward in front of the right hip. At the same time, in order to flatten the club a little bit, we want the right forearm to supinate, which means we want to twist it palm up, and at the same time we want to get the feeling with the arm, the upper arm adducting, the right arm is going to supinate, and the supination is going to suggest to the shoulder to externally rotate, which would again help the elbow drive more forward as opposed to staying way up. So we're going to get this thing to try to flatten out. Now this is a move that's not in Jamie's repertoire, but I think he can get to it. Now if you look at the face, once this thing kicks, once it kicks to about here, that wrist is going to start to try to turn down or add flexion, bow, whatever you want to call it. And of course that would move the face to a little less open, right? So we're going to get rid of this. And the other thing we're going to try to do is we're going to go back in that rehearsal and see if we can aim the hands back down to where they came from. So one thing you can do is you can stick a shaft in the ground here with a head cover on it or something and sort of define that space that you would like to come down. You can see he's going to work it further out. But as he goes to pump this a couple times and hit it, you can just see that this is going to be a stubborn deal, because just watch the right shoulder and arm. See that? So that's what we're trying to get rid of. So this is what a stop and go does when it's not done quite right. He's going to pull it back and that arm is going to actually pull backwards. So that's why it's so important to do what he did on this one, which is just start. Don't add backswing to these stop and goes. Start from the ground. There. All right.